Attention, please. Would members of the Economic and Community Development Committee please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum? Thank you.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. The next speaker is Sandra Willits. Okay, just want to remind everybody that we're on item EC 5.4, the supporting survivors of human trafficking. Our next speaker is Anna Willits. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you as well.
And it's Anna Willits. And I've been working on women's, workers, migrants, and other human rights issues since coming to Toronto in 1982, and have been awarded 2 City of Toronto Human Rights Awards, which is neither here nor there, but I have been involved in human rights work.
Great awards.
Yes. I have worked with the Toronto Rape Crisis Centre Multicultural Women Against Rape for 20 years, and after that, I became a faculty member with the Assaulted Women's and Children's Counselor Advocate Program at George Brown College. Been there since 2000, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself today. I'm also been involved with police accountability work since I came to Toronto in 1982, and am a longtime member of the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition. My remarks today are informed by what I have learned from speaking directly with women who do sex work, with migrant workers and their advocates from groups such as Butterfly and Maggie's, and by the communications that you have in front of you from Professor Mariana Valverde and the Chinese and Southeast Asian Legal Clinic. I really am going to sort of support and reiterate what many, many speakers have said today to you, and really support the recommendations and amendments that have been brought forward by Butterfly and Maggie's, and really support also what the writers of the report, staff report, in terms of their differentiating between human trafficking and sex work, and making sure that we don't always conflate the two. I think that's a really good thing. The term human trafficking is being used more and more often to refer to a wide range of issues and situations where sex is involved. And as Professor Valverde points out, and we'll talk to you about in a little while, this has led to the use of trafficking laws in many cases as cover for continued investigation and harassment of women and others engaged in consensual sex work, including many migrant women who work in body rub parlors and holistic centers. And this is despite the fact that the city auditors, the Auditor General, found in 2017 that sex trafficking was not a serious issue in these workplaces. I think she found perhaps 3 to 5 cases. And that there is other evidence that sex trafficking is actually not a major issue in Toronto and Canada. So we've got to be really, really mindful and careful and make sure that our responses to exploitation of vulnerable and marginalized people in all workplaces, particularly racialized migrant women, must be informed by the facts and must be informed by the workers themselves. And we're speaking about women and trans folks and others currently working in the field. The report suggests the creation of a new support and outreach team that will not perhaps or may not have established and trusting relationships with migrant workers and sex workers. And I just want to support the city really turning their investment, if it's in outreach and in a strategy for addressing this issue, really using the wonderful resources and support groups that already are active on this issue. And that's Butterfly, that's Maggie's, the Workers' Action Center, the FCJ Refugee Center. You really can't do this kind of work without having established, trusted relationships with people. Any kind of social or community work is dependent on having relationships. And so to create, I don't know if the report is suggesting this, but if the idea is to create a new outreach team or suggest that the police work in concert with community members on some sort of outreach team, I don't think that's going to work, and in fact may drive people underground, sex workers further underground because of the fear they'll have, and will also perhaps ignore the very real issues that other migrant workers who are being trafficked face, as the report says, in hotels and restaurants and many, many other places. So we really need to make sure that we are using the resources, and I would strongly encourage the city to invest resources in those groups that have those relationships. Police are not social workers. They're not good at it. They're not trained for it. They're very difficult to train. I have participated in training in the past. I think there's lots of people that would argue that, in fact, with policing, the problem is the culture of policing, that the fact that the police's core function is to enforce laws and respond to 911 calls and things like that means that they are ill-suited to do social work. And training and we have to look at police culture and the fact that it's very top-down, it's paramilitary, it's a power over kind of model, it's a take control, and police always, no matter what their interactions with the public, will have the duty to be looking at, are you breaking the law, and am I going to detain you because of that? And that does not jibe with social work. That is not the way a social worker approaches doing this work. So I just wanted to kind of, I know Councillor Carol was talking a lot about, joint efforts and training police. It's a very expensive way to go. I would say it's not necessary. The police have a function. Winnie Ng talked about that function, and that function is to enforce the law as it applies to the traffickers and try to cut off that source, all traffickers, not just sex trafficking. But that if what we're looking at is how to do outreach. 5 minutes. Are we at 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I would welcome talking about
You actually
this
had some
a bit
extra
more.
time as well because the clock had actually stopped.
Okay.
That's okay.
Oh, it's like a Raptors game. Would my 7 seconds last for about 20 minutes? Would that be okay?
As long as we win.
All right.
We have some questions, so that through the questioning, you may be able to add some more points.
Sure.
Councillor Carroll, to question?
Yeah, I do want to ask some questions about the deputation, but the first question has to be based on your last comment. I hope, do you understand, I have to form it in the question, that when I was asking my things about the police, it wasn't training in this. This report is about how we serve survivors.
Right.
That wasn't, I was asking questions about police training with regards to the work that they do have to do.
Right.
This isn't their work to do. But if we're going to have this set up, and they don't respect it or think it needs to be accessed, then we still have a problem. So they're not part of this report, absolutely, but the work that I was exposed to, that Scott was doing back in 2016, that integrated them to give them greater understanding, was having an impact. I think, would you be familiar with the work that was going on with that joint project at the time?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, okay.
But I'll definitely
That's the only
look that
reason
up.
I was asking questions about them, because I don't think we can just leave it. They have a unit over there if the work they do is toxic.
Right, right.
So on this one, the reason I ask questions about the approach, I think Jenny mentioned it earlier, where the the agencies and NGOs and supporters like Maggie's and Butterfly, et cetera, are the front line, and we're the next line. We're not going in partnership with them. Do you have a concern that if we approach it that way, the kind of extreme sensitivity and full understanding that you want, we're never in the field, so we'll never gain it? Are you not concerned about not building that within the city's services that are meant to be responsive?
Right. I don't think it's necessarily either or. Absolutely, all of us should be educated about the issues. We should understand the vulnerabilities of migrant workers. I think, and so yes, city staff absolutely should be trained in that. So if it's my misunderstanding, but the notion that a new outreach team, you know, that has to yet develop those relationships, et cetera, that doesn't make sense to me. But certainly Butterfly and Maggie's working together with city staff and doing education on those issues, and the staff report shows that there's really a great base and foundation for that. Makes sense.
Right. So if we adopt the motion as it's been proposed to be amended to develop an outreach model, wouldn't you would agree that the education you'd be looking for from the city people taking part in the model, they're not going to be fully educated if they don't have real exposure?
Maybe it's a little bit the wording. I think it would be to build upon the model that exists, right? So just be conscious of not recreating, that there's been an effective model developed by grassroots groups. I guess I may be speaking a little bit from experience where just in terms of gender violence services, we've seen institutions like the police, like the health system, develop parallel kinds of things that are problematic, right? That leave a lot of people
to avoid.
Yeah.
Parallel tracks does not do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Carol. There are no further questions of you,
Nope.
ma'am. Thank you
Great,
very
thanks.
much. Our next speaker is Janelle Gallants, Migrant Sex Workers Project. Ms. Gallant? You have 5 minutes. Let me know when you're ready.
Great, thank you. I'm ready.
Thank you very much.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Gallants, and thank you so much for the chance to speak here today. So I have been working on issues related to people in the sex trade for 15 years. I am the director of the Migrant Sex Workers Project, an organization of migrants, sex workers, and allies. And I am formerly a staff member with the Aboriginal Sex Workers Education and Outreach Project at Maggie's, where I worked under the leadership of Indigenous women in the sex trade. So I have a little bit about myself. I've presented to the Canadian House of Commons, the National Anti-Trafficking Forum, and the Toronto Counter-Human Trafficking Network on sex work policy issues. And personally, just to ground this a bit in why we're here, I'm here because in 2004, while I was visiting some family in Vancouver, I learned of the massacre of sex workers that was occurring on the downtown east side at the time. I had family in the sex industry at the time. Not on the streets, but close enough to them that it terrified me. So I decided then and there that I would do everything I could to prevent that from ever happening again. And over the years, I realized that we could actually do much better than that. We could do more than simply prevent horrible instances of violence, but that actually we could ensure that sex workers get the right to be free. Free to go about their lives with safety, respect, and liberty. So I joined the Sex Workers' Rights Movement, a global movement for the rights of people in the sex trade. And today, we have this incredible opportunity to create policy that works for migrant sex workers and to prevent human trafficking. I've learned a great deal about what keeps sex workers safe and what protects their freedom, and I want to share some of that as it bears on policy regarding trafficking in body rub parlors. So I'm going to assume that we're all here because we all believe in the rights of all people to live with freedom, safety, and dignity. But how do we accomplish this? And this is what we're hearing different voices on today. So first, I want to acknowledge what I've seen of the city's work on this that I think is really working. And that's that the SDFA report on body rub parlors recognized the importance of distinguishing sex work from trafficking, right? And it might be complex for those of you who aren't very familiar with this issue, why that's so important. But this is an excellent step toward protecting the human rights of sex workers and trafficking survivors. So global organizations, including Amnesty International, the Global Alliance Against the Trafficking in Women, and local and national sex work organizations have all identified this conflation as specifically increasing sex workers' vulnerability to abuse, including sexual and physical assault, robbery, arrest and deportation, and also trafficking. So thankfully, though, we do have strategies that we know work. So Anna Willits, prior to me, and many of the deputants today refer to existing networks of support that reduce the harms of any anti-trafficking policies on migrants and sex workers. So what I'm going to recommend to council are some of the same recommendations you'd have heard from other deputants. The first is an outreach program to community organizations and not to workplaces. So community organizations have existing, trusting relationships with migrants and sex workers, and they're able to develop the best strategy that works. These organizations can share policies and educate the community through channels that are working. As part of this, to stop reliance on surveillance and inspections in workplaces, these just don't work for the reasons that Anna Willits pointed out. People in the sex trade, immigrants, Indigenous women, and survivors of sexual violence largely do not want to turn to enforcement agents for support, resources, information, or even safety. In the research that Butterfly conducted, they found that 95% of Asian migrant sex workers said they would not call the police even if they were at risk of serious physical violence. That might not be what we want to be true, but it is what is true right now, and we need to make policy based on that. So locating access to services in enforcement branches actually puts services out of reach of the people who most need them. Contact with city staff must be wanted and voluntary. This is a basic premise that is used as a best practice in the violence against women sector, where they employ a person-centered approach so that services are accessible, understood, trusted, wanted, non-discriminatory, and people can reach out to them.
Thank you, ma'am. You're
when
at
in
5
help.
minutes.
That's been 5 minutes?
That's 5 minutes.
Damn.
So maybe through the, did you have one final point you needed to
I
make?
do. You know
Why
what?
don't
I
you just make
wanna
it? Go
finish
ahead.
by- Yeah, thank you so much.
But I'm
I
not
just
going to
wanna-
give you more than 30 seconds.
Fair enough, fair enough. Very quickly, I'm going to say commit to anti-discrimination, include migrant workers outside of the sex trade in this, and then lastly, just recognize that migrant sex workers are incredible, brilliant, resilient, intelligent people who actually know how to prevent their own trafficking, and rely on them as your experts.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay, there are no questions of you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Actually, that sounded like
me?
there might have been a question.
Pardon me? I don't know. Do you have your documents in writing?
I
You can
didn't
submit to the
pre-submit it,
clerk?
but I can submit it.
Oh, no, if you've already submitted it, we would have it.
No, what it's saying
you
is I
did not.
haven't, but I can
Oh,
submit
that would
it
be
now.
fantastic. Thank you. That'd be very helpful.
That's great. Thank you,
Thank you very
Councilor
much.
Carroll. Are there any other questions?
No, that's my question to ask, but thank you. No. Our next speaker is Vivian Wu, Butterfly Asian and Migrant Workers Network. Vivian? And you'll have 5 minutes, ma'am. The clock is to your left. Just pay attention to that when you get moments. Okay, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, so hello, my name is Vivian Wu, and I am a second-year undergraduate student studying health sciences at McMaster University, and I'm here on behalf of Butterfly to present someone's narrative and tell their story. So, Asian migrant sex workers are often perceived to be at risk of abuse from their traffickers, who are often, in fact, their colleagues, partners, or friends working with and supporting them. And current policies meant to prevent exploitation and forced labor are not effective or empowering, as the surveillance of sex workers and assumption of all the third parties are traffickers actually increase risk and vulnerability. These policies take away migrant sex workers' ability to negotiate for better working conditions and protect themselves and their own community from different kinds of oppression. They further marginalize migrant sex workers by preventing them from reporting experiences of violence or harassment due to fear of repercussions from law enforcement. And so, migrant sex workers are arrested, detained, and deported in some anti-trafficking investigations. So here's a story of one of the members of our support network, Sun, who was arrested and deported in an anti-trafficking investigation in Toronto. So Sun had lived in Canada for 5 years, and she built a stable life here. She had a lot of friends, routined her days, and she strongly believed in the importance of her work. So as an indoor sex worker, she was also an active member of Butterfly, and she was often found to be offering advice and support for newly arrived migrants and other sex workers. And through this network, she formed trusting and reciprocal relationships with her work colleagues, as well as close friendships with some of her clients. So one day, Sun and her colleague were at their house when they heard the doorbell ring, and a few male police officers rushed into their apartment without warning. Sun and her colleague were grabbed, and they were interrogated by the police officers. And one of the officers, who spoke their language, told them, "Don't be scared. Are you under control of anyone? Is anyone forcing you to do this? Do you have a boss?" And Sun, she was absolutely terrified. She responded, "No, I'm doing this out of my own will." And she also mentioned that she didn't have a boss. So the officer then proceeded to ask her a series of questions, including how long she had been in Canada and what her immigration status was. But Sun was not a trafficked individual, and she wasn't being controlled by anyone. She worked hard to support herself and her family, and through this, the police broke the access without fear policies of Toronto, and they called the CBSA. So then Sun was detained for more than 30 days, and then she was deported. And her coworkers were forced to work more underground in order to avoid any investigation or contact with law enforcement officials. And so through this story, we hope to let all of you know about how we support the good intentions of anti-trafficking initiatives, but we recognize that they may be used to target migrant sex workers, which increases their vulnerability and risk, which can put them into danger. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Carroll, a question?
So this is where I think it seems as if over lunch there's become a misunderstanding about questions I was asking earlier on, and your story is why I've been asking the questions I've been asking. Wouldn't you say that, well, we have an item here and a proposal, and we have an amendment from the community, which is about supporting survivors of human trafficking. Do you believe the city has a role to have some kind of dialogue and make some kind of impression on the police that they have a long way to go in their own training if they're going to have their own separate human trafficking unit? Because that's our only mention of the police in this report, is that they have a unit, they're doing a thing over there. Today's report is about this. But can we really achieve the safety that we want, a better approach, or in fact a mind your own business approach, which is what that story seems to say? Can we do that if we still see broad generalization and scary tactics happening in the police's unit?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I'm only a volunteer of the organization, and this really isn't my area of expertise, so I don't believe that I can give you like a fully satisfactory answer, because I'm simply here today just to
That's
present
fair.
someone's narrative.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I feel like if you would have any other things to like discuss or to further, I don't know, ask, you could always talk to Aline Lam, my supervisor,
Yeah,
who presented
yeah.
earlier today, because I believe she would like
Yeah.
be really glad to discuss this with you.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
no.
But Aileen was here earlier today. But I think there's some misunderstanding. It's not that I'm saying they should be part of this. I'm just saying that if there's some integration, that narrative does not stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it should. You would agree with that? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vivian. And may I just say this, as a young person and you're a university student and so on, you've done an amazing job in terms of representing the voice that you're asked to represent here. So thank you. Look forward to seeing you back, whether or not it's on this issue or other issues. This is your city. We want to make it a better place for everybody. Appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
Thank you.
We normally don't allow clapping, but for just one, we'll make an exception. All right. Our next speaker is, I believe it's Elia Dorson. Is she here?
Unfortunately, Dr. Durison had to leave. but
Okay,
she
fair
did
enough.
Submit her deposition in writing.
She has,
so you should
okay,
have that.
fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, and we have Mariana Valderdi, sorry. Marian Valderdi, here we are. Thank you very much. And you are with the Center for Criminal and Social,
Or criminology, yeah.
it's a long thing that's actually here on my list. The University of Toronto, right?
Yes, well, anyway, thank you, Councillor Thompson. The agenda item, which is what I saw, is worded as if it has already been established with solid evidence that, first of all, sex trafficking is a major issue in Toronto, and that second, the city, rather than the police, have a responsibility to investigate premises that are thought to be harboring such activities. I think both of these premises are questionable from an empirical point of view. For years now, many police forces, including the RCMP, have been using the trafficking law rather than prostitution laws. And this is because the Harper government passed a new prostitution law in 2014, subsequent to the Bedford decision of the Supreme Court that struck down the old laws. That new law that was passed under Harper is on thin legal and constitutional grounds. I can't get into it now, but our evidence is that police have been using the trafficking law instead of the old, pimping style kind of laws. I read a very interesting doctoral thesis in law by John Ferguson, a senior RCMP inspector who was the head of the first RCMP immigration task force on trafficking. And he said there that despite spending much energy and millions of taxpayer dollars trying to find sex trafficking activities all over Canada, in fact, police forces were unable to find, well, maybe not any, but hardly any women who were coerced into crossing borders for the purpose of sexual exploitation, which is what most people think that trafficking is. And he concluded that the coercion of migrant workers in fields that had nothing to do with sex, such as agriculture, manufacturing, and restaurants, was being neglected, and the police were not investigating that due to an overemphasis on sensationalist stories about Asian and Eastern European women as victims of sex trafficking rings. And later, there was a doctoral thesis at York University, supervised by Professor Kamala Kemp, who's here, that showed more or less the same thing. And as I recall, I haven't had time to reread it, she found when she was writing the thesis that there were exactly 3 prosecutions across the country for trafficking, and none of them involved the classic women being smuggled against their will across borders. Now, police forces have used the trafficking law for situations of purely local pimping. That doesn't mean reality has changed. It doesn't mean there's more trafficking. It just means enforcement categories have changed. Plenty of investigations have been carried out, including many in Toronto, in which the city, specifically MLS, has participated. But while sex trafficking is certainly a big problem in many parts of the world, that doesn't appear to be the case here. And in any case, it is the police, not city inspectors, who have the responsibility for enforcing the criminal law. As the Butterfly Group has documented, investigations of purported sex trafficking have long resulted in migrant women being harassed, stigmatized, fined, and in some cases deported. Though I am very happy to say for our colleagues in MLS that I hear things are much better now, because when Tracy Cook was in charge of MLS, I think she took complaints quite seriously. So things certainly have changed, but they could always go back the other way. So I would just urge you to listen to the migrant women represented by Butterfly and other groups, the FCJ Refugee Center, the HIV/AIDS Coalition, and basically put an end to the crusade that has for some time now been actually harming the very women that you want to protect. The lens that should be used by MLS and other city staff is the lens of human rights and labor rights. And then finally, if city councilors really want to help migrant workers or sex workers, they can provide support or continue to provide support to the grassroots groups that exist, such as Butterfly and Maggie's. And here I just reiterate what the two previous speakers said, Anna Willits and Janelle Gallants, that...
Thank you, ma'am. You're at 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Ms. Valverde? Okay, thank you. There are no questions of you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Renee Damask. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll have 5 minutes. Let me know when you're ready to begin.
I'm ready.
Let's start your clock. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Everybody, my name is Renee Dumaresque, and I'm speaking on behalf of Showing Up for Racial Justice Toronto today. I'm also a registered social worker, and I'm completing my PhD in social work right now at York University. I have experience in violence against women service provision and have several years' experience related to advocacy issues on sex work justice. I'm here to represent a body of Toronto residents who are concerned about the demonstrated harms of repressive and restrictive laws and enforcement that conflate sex work and human trafficking, which has been widely talked about today, and the particularly detrimental impacts experienced by migrant workers, migrant sex workers, or migrant workers who are suspected of sex work. We are pleased that the city report has acknowledged these harms and are really encouraged that the city hopes to adopt a strategy that will not increase the vulnerability of sex workers. Across most industries, exploitation is often the result of discrimination, poverty, and other precarious circumstances. A report was recently released by The Color of Poverty, which demonstrated that racialized immigrant women face increased levels of poverty as well as poor working conditions. These statistics emphasize that in moving forward with this strategy, it's foundational to consider the very specific ways in which narratives of human trafficking are often shaped by racist stereotypes, but also the conflation of sex work and human trafficking, as well as the conflation of poor working conditions and human trafficking. Poor working conditions do not translate to a trafficking situation, but it's very common that poor working conditions are interpreted as trafficking. A community services and supports approach is integral to the effectiveness of this committee strategy. When people's choices are limited due to poverty and inequality, it's extremely harmful to reduce a person's choices even further. Punitive regulations further impact an individual's right to work and thereby contribute to poverty for workers already marginalized by injustice and inequality. So we're asking the city to support the development of an outreach model and an appropriate pilot strategy in consultation with community members, sex workers, migrant workers, and human trafficking survivors. And so specifically, like many others today, we urge the committee to adopt the amendments proposed by Maggie's and Butterfly that positions community organizations as the direct contact with vulnerable workers. In order to prioritize the well-being and human rights of workers, bylaw enforcement officers and city staff must not be included in direct outreach to workers. Patterns of harassment, surveillance, and excessive fining have created a climate of fear such that the involvement of city staff will push vulnerable workers further underground, thereby increasing isolation, such as workers will not be able to access supports in instances of violence or labor exploitation when they might otherwise want to access supports. This has come up a few times, so I'll just very quickly speak to it. But I don't actually think that it's necessary for city staff to witness vulnerable workers in their workplaces, for city staff to gain a meaningful understanding of the issues. Training from community experts such as Butterfly and Maggie's can deliver education that helps develop an empathetic understanding of the issues, and also that helps people to understand that we all have a very different and specific role to play in combating issues such as these that require many different approaches, and then in this case, a labor approach. This is a lesson that I've also had to learn myself as a social worker, where sometimes other roles are better suited for direct contact with communities. And there isn't a direct relationship between witnessing certain forms of marginalization and then appropriate forms of empathy that actually result in really effective outcomes that align with a person-centered approach for sex workers and people in vulnerable situations. The direct involvement, as a social worker, I also understand how critically important it is to employ a person-centered approach that makes services both voluntary as well as accessible. This is an evidence-based approach that has been demonstrated effective across sectors of health and social services everywhere. And a major aspect of this model is the engagement of peer workers in delivering outreach services. So organizations, again, such as Maggie's and Butterfly, already have established peer programming and years invested in building trust with individuals and communities this strategy hopes to service. A person-centered approach will prioritize the voices of workers in all decisions and initiatives, and therefore will counter the stigma, discrimination, and surveillance currently enacted through approaches that criminalize workers. And if we begin to listen to communities when they tell us that they're not in trafficking situations, then we can move toward addressing the supports people actually require to best provide for themselves and their families. This strategy, if done well, can actually also move the City of Toronto in compliance with the accessing services without fear, regardless of immigration statuses.
Thank you very much. Right on time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, there are no questions of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a copy of your presentation?
I don't, but I'll email it to
That would be very helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Our next speaker is Luis Alberto Mata, FCJ Refugee Center. Okay, fantastic. No worries. Thank you. I will just cross his name off my list here. And the next speaker then I have is Beishi Lu. Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. And it's Andishala. Okay, thank you. You may come forward. And very well, thank you. Thank you for being here. And you'll have 5 minutes. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
And okay, and we're going to start the time now.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Me here today.
Thank you.
Thank you to the presenters who've gone before me as well. My name
Can I just ask you to move closer to the mic, just so we can capture your voice? Or just move it even a little closer to you.
Is that good?
Is that, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
My name is Anjali, and I am a PhD candidate in the Policy Studies program at Ryerson University, where I'm in the process of writing a dissertation on anti-trafficking policy and programming in Ontario. I'd like to just begin by saying that the committee's efforts to distinguish sex work from trafficking will not go unnoticed. However, it is clear from the very first recommendation that there continues to be a troubling conceptualization of human trafficking as synonymous with sexual exploitation, and worse, with the sex trade as a whole. Not only does this lead to the over-surveillance and criminalization of people involved in the sex trade, evidenced by the report's suggestion that the city should have access to sex workspaces, but it also misses an important opportunity to consider the broader structural issues arising from the global exploitation of workers everywhere. I'd like to just quickly share some insights from my research in relation to this conflation of sex work and trafficking. I recently interviewed over 20 organizations that are funded by the province to do anti-trafficking work. And while the work of these organizations, of course, benefits many, their approach to human trafficking rarely involves an understanding of labor exploitation. Over 80% of the organizations I interviewed focus solely on sex trafficking, which they often understand as an extension of sexual assault, and have almost no programming to support migrant workers and other laborers experiencing exploitation, violence, or abuse. A number of the organizations, some of them in the GTA, also take a prohibitionist stance and condemn all forms of sex work. What my research has identified is that due to a lack of access to resources, many organizations are turning to anti-trafficking funders, like the Ministry of Children, Community, and Social Services, in order to secure much-needed dollars. They develop new anti-trafficking programs so that they can access new grants, provided that they save or rescue victims of trafficking. However, in the process of relabeling people as trafficking victims, they often inflate the reality of trafficking in Canada, and thereby the need for criminal intervention, which happens at the expense of sex workers, as you've heard here today. So let me just provide you with some quotes from my interviews to illustrate my point. As one organization notes, quote, "We don't request that women identify as being trafficked. We will support every woman with the premise that she is at risk of being trafficked if she hasn't been already." Another organization explains, quote, We recognize that Indigenous women are at high risk and homeless women are at high risk. So every homeless Indigenous woman who comes to our shelter, we perceive her as being at risk of human trafficking or of sexual exploitation. These women aren't being brought from hotel to hotel, but they are being sexually exploited from couch to couch. So for us, that's the definition that fits our needs. One service provider even suggests, quote, "Any young girl is at risk nowadays. Any woman is at risk because we're vulnerable to wanting to be loved and cared for." So to be clear, my research shows that most organizations won't deny services to people who don't self-identify as victims of trafficking, but will often label them as such in their funding reports and for other purposes, such as in educational and promotional materials. We can see here how the definition of victim of trafficking is socially and politically constructed and reinforced through funding priorities. So it is therefore of utmost importance that the city support organizations like Butterfly and Maggie's, who prioritize the labor and human rights of sex workers, migrant workers, and low-wage and precariously employed workers in their outreach and other frontline initiatives. This would go a long way towards ensuring that all people who experience exploitation, violence, and/or abuse, not only those who fit the trafficking image, can access non-discriminatory services, as well as towards upholding the city's commitment to distinguishing sex work from trafficking as prescribed by its anti-human trafficking lens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentations. Are there any questions? There are no questions for you, but do you have a copy of your presentation
No.
that's been handed to the clerk?
I can send it in.
Okay, that would be
Actually, I
fantastic.
do have one copy.
Okay.
Is that enough, or should I email it in?
I think the clerks can make copies, so if you've got one you'd like to hand it in, someone will come and
Okay,
get it from you.
sounds good.
Thank you for your presentation. Our next speaker is Kamala Kemp, York University. Hello. Good afternoon. How are you? And welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Yes.
I know you've been with us all day, so thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me here. Kamala Kemp, professor in social science at York University. I'm a sociologist, and for about 3 decades, my research has focused on human trafficking and the global sex industry. And I've submitted a written statement here, so I'm not going to read that for you, because I think we've heard a lot of important information throughout the day, and some common themes have been repeating. But I should also say what I do is I teach a course at York University on about human trafficking. I also teach a course about sexual labor and sex work, but quite separately. And some of my students have actually been observing these discussions as part of their education as well. But I think what's really been important coming out from these deputations here are some important points about the distinction that is made in the staff report between trafficking in the sex industry and sex work. And this is something that I reiterate in my statement as well. It's important that we recognize the difference and recognize that hyper-exploitation and violence is happening in a number of workplaces throughout Ontario and Toronto, and that we should not be focusing exclusively on the sex industry or even body rub or holistic centers. This is really important. The second issue I think that's been repeated here today regularly is that if the city is developing outreach, that must be in consultation with the organizations that are on the ground, the community organizations, Butterfly, Maggie's, the Worker Action Center, the Refugee Center, and so forth. But also, I would argue that we should also be, you should also be working with organizations that are working with Indigenous women, as well as marginalized youth, because they are also often the targets of anti-trafficking efforts in Canada today. In my statement, I point to a document that I put together with students at York University and other academic researchers, which have some important recommendations, and there's a link which you can follow and find that report. I'm not going to repeat it there. It's a very accessible report. But I'd also refer you to a dissertation written by Katrine Roots at York University, who I did not supervise, but she looked at policing in Ontario. And that's something that you might want to look more closely at. And there are a number of things that come out of her research, one of which is that a lot of the convictions for trafficking cases is actually landing on young black men as being seen as the pimps or the traffickers, which is of concern. The other finding that she has, and she has several, is that there's a lot of confusion in the definitions of trafficking, and there's quite a difference between how the police and people within the police understand it and how the Crown attorneys might find it, or how lawyers understand it. And that difference in understanding of trafficking has important implications for cases and for prosecutions and so forth. Those differences in understandings are not specific to Canada or Ontario. It happens around the world. In fact, the definitions of trafficking are so vague that they're almost useless at this point. One of the things that has come up is to focus on the causes of vulnerability and precarity. I think that those are really important issues, to look at particularly laws that criminalize sex work, to look at the laws that do not give permanent residence to migrants coming into the country, and also to scrutinize the employers who are, using highly exploitative practices in their workplaces. These are important to focus on. The reduction of this amount of surveillance and policing is important, and I think also the deflation of the moral panic about sex work are important issues that are being raised here.
I'll give you one final.
Well, I think my
Done?
statement has other.
Fantastic. Okay, great. We're on time. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the professor? Okay, Sheena, I have one for you.
Yes.
So what is your definition of human trafficking? Because you said it's vague, it's useless, and so on, but you are a professor, and you've done a lot of work in your years in this area. What's your definition?
I actually don't want to use the term human trafficking.
Okay.
Because
Is there a definition of trafficking then?
I feel that we should be talking about forced migration or forced migration or forced labor.
Okay.
And that if we use those terms, we actually will see a lot of the problems that are happening in that are often called human trafficking.
I see. Okay.
So those two terms already capture everything that's being covered under the umbrella of human trafficking.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. We have one final deputant, and that's Justin. I have Justin Kong here. Is that yourself?
Hi, Justin Cole already left, so I will be here represent Justin Cole and read the statement from.
And may I just ask who you are so that we know?
I'm Jayden Pan.
Jayden Pan?
Jaden, last name Peng.
Okay. Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jayden Pan, the board of director of CCNCTO, Chinese Canadian National Council Toronto chapter. CCNCTO is an organization of Chinese Canadian in the city of Toronto that promotes equity, social justice, inclusive civic participation, and respect for diversity. We care about human rights and labor rights, especially when many of our community members who are migrant workers and immigrants experiencing settlement and employment challenges. We support the staff report, which highlights the importance of differentiating migrant workers, sex workers, and human trafficking victims and avoid increasing the vulnerability of migrant and sex workers. In order to better protect human rights and labor rights of our members, we are asking the city to support the development of a better outreach model and appropriate the pilot strategy in consultation with community members, including sex workers, migrant workers, and human trafficking survivors based on the reasons below. First, we find that the current framing of the recommendation, which suggests human trafficking is something that is only happening in sex industry, very problematic and misleading. We know trafficking happens in many sectors in society, including agriculture, service sectors, manufacturing, and others. In fact, CCNCTL has been serving workers across these sectors for some time. Therefore, it is very important that trafficking is not only seen as something that happens in the sex industry, but rather we begin the framing of the trafficking question with the recognition of the lack of power faced by marginalized workers across the all sectors. The best resolution is enabling workers to exercise their rights by ensuring that immigration, criminal, and other laws do not inhibit the capacity of people to protect their rights. We believe the City of Toronto should take the position rights, not rescue. Second, we find that the recommendations and report do not adequately reflect the distinction between consensual sex work and human trafficking. This is problematic as it could risk criminalizing and further marginalizing people who, for whatever reason, may choose to participate in sex work, especially migrant workers. Sex workers and sex worker rights groups have consistently pointed out that conflating their work with trafficking is harmful and unproductive. Third, the policy sees the police and surveillance as key to upholding, protecting trafficked. We know that many people who are trafficked, or even those who may not be trafficked, may be reluctant to engage with the police, immigration enforcement agents, city officers, etc. Therefore, rather than moving resources toward policing, we need to provide resources to support the organizations that are currently working with the community. CCNCTL has partnership with Butterfly and Parkdale Queen West Health Center. We are running training programs for our outreach teams to approach the marginalized workers in grocery stores, nail salons, and massage parlors. We are also producing outreach materials better help outreach teams as well as the workers to identify their needs and challenges, including the issues of trafficking, immigration, work safety, and labor exploitation. For the migrant CCNCTL approach, some of them might not speak fluent English. They might worry about getting into trouble by working with officers due to their relationship with employers or their immigration status. These workers only trust organizations like us to access help instead of police officers or city investigators. Even many organizations already build a relationship with the workers, we will be able to better support and provide resources when trafficking happens. The City of Toronto has access without fear policy. It is critical that all policies as part of the anti-trafficking are subject to this policy. If people fear that their immigration status may lead to reprisals, we further marginalize these workers and subject them to greater danger and abuse from ill-intentioned parties. Given those reasons, we believe city staff and community partners should work together to better protect the workers and make sure they feel safe to approach service when they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Members, do we wish to ask staff questions? Yes. Okay, so we'll take this in, and questions of staff will begin with Councillor Carol.
1 second, I'm trying to get you the electronic version. The amendment. Here we are. It should arrive shortly.
No worries.
The questions of staff. First of all, the theme that keeps running through all of this is what is our strategy around migrant workforce abuses, human trafficking. As they said, they'd rather take away the term altogether and talk about forced labor and the whole issue. Do we have a separate strategy around that? Has council neglected to ever ask for that?
Through the chair, no, Councillor, not that we can recall council asking for.
So we haven't asked you to report to us on that. We haven't really had that discussion about the broader workforce abuses through forced migrant labor.
And forced labor, no.
Or even forced migration.
No, that would be something that we would look to our provincial colleagues to
Okay.
support, I think.
And
Sorry, Councillor Carol, just DCM, did you want to add something to that? She's good? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
And I'm at a disadvantage because I wasn't on CDR last term, but I was sitting in the police board, and here he comes now, as if on cue. The whole strategy that was forwarded onto the police board to deal with the issue that we heard in the scenario earlier, that there are times when really supporting survivors, aiding someone, having any protocol, what stands in the way of it is the police being really quick to hit the dial button and contact CBSA. Was there meant to be a report back to this committee or the former CDR that is still not happening, or was that wrapped up on the city side?
Through the chair, that was wrapped up, I guess, on the city side.
Yeah.
There was a number
Not
of
necessarily to
communications.
satisfaction.
There was a number of requests from council to Police Services Board in this regard. Police Services Board responded. The nature of the relationship between Toronto Police Service and CBSA is a complex one, and there was a complex response.
Yes.
The advice to council based on that conversation was to remove Toronto Police Service from the list of services under Access TO.
Right. Until we could be assured that they were actually employing a policy properly. Yes.
That's correct. We did not have assurance at that time.
Exactly. Okay, so that's still where it's at. Now, the report that's before us today, I asked the authors earlier if they were aware. You're not aware of we had another outreach work done on human trafficking that did have, that's the term that was being used with respect, in which there was a bit of an overlap. There was an integration where the police took part in the discussions that went on, and it was in conjunction with people from Montreal. Scott's last name escapes me. I'm having a moment. Are you aware of that work? Is there anything in writing on that work?
Through the chair, yes, we're aware of that work, Councillor. We do not have anything in writing on it. The Toronto Police Service did bring learnings away from that conversation they had with the Montreal service. And Scott's last name is McKean.
Yes, and I watched the police officers who were present on that field trip be impacted, but it sounds like, if I listen to the narrative and I hear all the deputies, it doesn't sound like any of that is showing up in training. So there's work that needs to be done in that regard, but it would be better done by making direct requests to the police board.
Understood, Councillor. The police now do training, not just with officers in the sex work unit, but across the entire service. They do training about trafficking.
Okay. And lastly, last question. You have seen the amendment that I'm going to be placing, and it's gone through iterations. You're comfortable with it now? Staff could support a councillor making those amendments?
Yes, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions of staff? I have one. What's our definition of trafficking?
We use the criminal code definition of trafficking, Chair,
Which is what?
which is
say?
in the report, and
I want you to state it to us.
trafficking is defined as recruiting, transporting, transferring, receiving, holding, concealing, or harboring a person, or exercising control, direction, or influence over the movements of a person for the purpose of exploiting them or facilitating their exploitation.
So would that also include the forced migration and forced labor?
It does.
Seems to be incorporated in that definition, is that correct?
Yes.
So this is a much more comprehensive and a broader definition?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. I know we're just finalizing the motion that Councillor Carroll is going to move. So are you in concert with the clerk?
Yes.
Fantastic. Fair enough. So can I then ask you to speak, and then she'll put the motion up while she's completed, and then she'll get it on the screen? It's about out of order. Normally put the motion first, but just in the interest of time. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Ordinarily, the reason it's really important to read the motion first is so that the gallery knows what we're moving, but they kind of do already, because it
they've asked for it,
actually
right?
is an amendment that comes out of the community reaching out before the meeting to say, here's where we'd be happy. And I want to really be clear to people, I'm not trying to insert the police back into this report. I'm asking my questions because there is other important work that it doesn't appear is going on. We can get as good as we like here. If what we heard in that scenario is still happening on the police side, we got a problem. What I witnessed in the field trip that I went with Toronto Police Service officer, I'm sorry, I'm being unfair. I'm looking at Councillor Ford because Councillor Ford currently sits where I used to sit on the police board, with the Toronto Police Service office, and he was incredibly impacted by it because what they were taken through was what we hoped would become their training module, where they spoke to, during that day, they spoke to a survivor who, if I can say it, the first person they spoke to actually might have fit their preconceived notion. Then they spoke to a migrant who is now a sex worker. And lastly, they spoke to a young woman who looks just like me when I was 20, who had been trafficked. And between the three, they finally realized it's a little more complex than they thought. And it isn't just about holistic centers. In fact, it's a whole different thing, and that by the end of it, they weren't sure they really understood sex work, let alone understanding forced sex work, and that they needed to work on it. And that was just one day, and really just 2 officers. That's the work they were then doing in Montreal to break that down. I'm just not sure we're doing that. And so we can enact this, and according to the amendment, we can do it much more with the community than without, but there'll still be this other thing going on in another realm. And that's why I was asking those questions this morning. Not to move it over into this report. If that's the discussion that folks had and took away from their lunch break, that's not where I was going. Where I was really going, method to my madness, I'm hoping that my colleague will ask when he's in a police board meeting, where'd you go with that field trip that we took to Montreal? What is in our training module? What are we doing about those sensitivities? But it truly is for another report, not this one. The amendment you see before you really reflects what we've been hearing in all the deputations this morning, that in the outreach model, the stakeholders really need to be described. It says community stakeholders, but they really feel like they've been through these sorts of approaches before enough that they really needed to see the roles described to be sure that we really were going to incorporate them in developing the outreach model, just saying you can come along for the ride, but here's our model. They want to help develop it. And so they're described now. And the sentence that is struck in recommendation number 1, as you can tell from the deputations, was what was giving people angst, that really our only course of action that we might look at was We're going to march into a workplace. You teach us how to do it more nicely, but we're marching into workplaces. And as we heard again and again, there are many ways to approach this that actually will lead to those who need to disclose disclosing, and those who have work to do continue to do their work. And that they wanted to be really clear that we use the words, the access without fear policy, because it is the city's policy. And it's not always clear that it actually is respected and played out at every portal. And so we got to use the name of the policy each time. And so I support the amendments. Councillor Wong Tam could not come back after lunch, but was she here, she was going to speak to these amendments as well, because she spent a long time working with some of the agencies to go through many iterations to get to one that really would be a partnership with staff. And so I'm hoping that the committee can support it so that it has a smooth ride through council.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Councillor Carol. Any questions for the councillor on the motion? Okay. Any other speakers? Councillor Lai?
I'd like to begin by thanking staff for this nice report, because it's a learning curve for me too, being new on this committee as well. And I've heard, and then also I thank all the deputants, and you care enough to come here to actually to put in your thoughts into the whole motion, and it's very important that we work together with these stakeholders, community stakeholders. And I'm very happy that we don't actually paint the whole thing with the same brush. I think it's a different, it's very important that it's a learning curve for myself too. I mean, I am learning all these things. Actually, a friend of mine called me. They own a franchise chain on holistic body rub parlors, and they're really freaking out and asking me, Cynthia, there's something coming on council that are they gonna affect my license of doing all these things and all that? And I said, well, not to worry, we're gonna be, working with the community stakeholders to make sure that we are good. And especially, I hear the deputant saying that it's very important that we have to build that good relationship, about the trusting relationship, and the only people that know best is the workers themselves, and it's very important that we actually tackle that. And this subject is very close to my heart, because a lot of these people are in my ward in Scarborough, and most of them are Asians, and I've seen a bunch of Asians here, deputants, and they really do a good job, and I applaud for their passion and for their help. And perhaps maybe I heard that 90% of them are Asian and some of them are East European. Maybe perhaps if you can expand the languages, I think that we'll be able to serve more groups and more people. But I support this amendment, because I'm hearing, I'm listening, and I think you've come a long way here to help us to listen to you, and I fully support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any further speakers? Okay, seeing none. Let me just take a moment to thank all the people who have come in to speak to us all today. It's as has been stated, part of it's a learning curve for many of us. We don't consider ourselves expert in this particular area. In fact, we're not experts in many areas, quite frankly, but we work hard at collaborating and doing the best we can. As I see this, I see this as the community and all the different groups that are involved in this area providing voice to the voiceless. And in many instances, these are people who are trying to survive, and oftentimes we complicate it much more problematic than it actually was before we got engaged. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you. Don't make it worse than it is. In fact, here are some of the things to ensure that you don't make it worse than it is. And so we're listening. So I want to thank you for that. The staff are here, and the motion that's been put forward by Councillor Carol is to ensure that the continued collaboration is enhanced based on what our goals and requirements are here. Really, it's a difficult situation all around, and we don't want to further complicate it by having policies that just seem to extenuate the negative aspect and to create more of a desire for people to continue to go underground and to avoid engagement and so on. And I think really it speaks to the humanity of this issue, that we want people to feel that their judgment and that their rights to access is not being trampled in an effort to enforce policies, right? And I say that's not what we want to do. So we want to undo that. As Councillor Lai has indicated, many of the people who are here, many are my constituents as well. And they're our constituents, they're our community. So I'm very proud that you're all here and you've waited the time, you've taken the time and patience and an opportunity to engage us and to educate us, because this is helpful. I'm hopeful that as we move forward, as your voice is included in the process, that we will have something as part of this pilot that will help us to define what should ultimately become policy that will guide us further to ensure that those who are feeling marginalized will feel empowered, because I think this is about empowering. That's at least how I see it, quite frankly. We're not there just yet, I get it, but we are going to get there with your help and your expertise and so on, because many of you have been in this field a lot longer than I've been a counselor, right? So I think it's really important and so on in terms of what you do. We won't get into the specifics or anything like that, but just to simply say, we want to make sure that people don't feel entramped, harassed, intimidated, fearful, and are assaulted or violated on an ongoing basis and so on. But we want to ensure that there is an avenue where people feel that they are being empowered to protect their interests and protect their families. I heard from some of the comments here, people in many cases are just trying to survive, trying to protect their families and so on. So it's not lost on me, and I don't think it's lost on any of my colleagues or the staff that are here. So I wanted to say that final piece just on the definition, Professor, you talked a little bit about sort of tailoring it, narrowing it down to be more focused, right? I mean, that's more stealth-like in terms of looking at it, because we have a broad definition and you're saying, hey, look, that doesn't work for me. We need to kind of narrow it down. And I don't disagree with you, but I just wanted to ensure that as we asked the staff the question, some of what you indicated, the migration and the labor piece, are incorporated in there. But I think your point was, based on what we're trying to do here, these are the two specific areas that we really need to kind of get our hands around so that we can address the fundamental challenges that are impacting these very people. And as I understand it, most are women, right? Not all maybe, but most are, right? And so it's even much more important for us to make sure we get out there because of just the imbalance that exists with respect to the relationship, perhaps just some of the things that are happening in the area. So I thank you again for being here, and I'm looking forward to this matter coming forward with your continued input, and that the pilot and our staff will be obviously able to learn from this, and so we can put in place those policy will help and guide us and shape us. So again, my final thank yous for all the staff members who are involved with respect to this particular process. So members, we have the amendment to the item, and so if we can vote on that, and then we'll vote on the item as amended. So we have the item that's moved by Councillor Carol. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. The matter is dealt with. Thank you. We're now moving on, members. Thank you. We're now moving on to EC 5.5. Is that where we are? EC 5.5. I had held that item simply to ask some questions. And so, yeah. So I had held that item because I guess when I looked at it, so there were, through to staff, there were a number of amendments that had already been made. Is that my reading of it? There was a total of $343,696.40 net of all taxes. Plus there was another one of $79,929.86. This forms then part of that 343 3696, is that correct? Sorry, the microphone, please.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then you're coming back now for an additional sum of $1,099,676, a net of $1,119,30. So I'm just wondering, so at the outset, why was this total not incorporated? Because then, is it then a total sum, is it 1.4 million that you're asking for then? In terms of the overage?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm just wondering why were we not able to look at the sort of total sum? How was it that you captured a piece and then later on you needed the extra million and change?
So when the RFP was put
I'm
together...
not sure if your microphone's on because I actually can't hear you again.
There we go. So when the RFP was put together in 2015, 2016, it was based on the volumes of the day. So this is another example of the pressures in terms of growth that we've experienced.
Okay.
So back in those days, the vehicles are an important component of our business, and they're highly regulated by the Ambulance Act.
Right.
So there's preventative maintenance schedules that the vehicles must meet. And a good example is that every 30 days a vehicle has to go through a preventative maintenance piece. So back when this contract was put together, we were seeing about 250 PMs per year. Now we're over 633 to get through the lifespan of these vehicles. All's not bad, but in terms of what we've also done to try to get through this process is Deputy Chief Handelsmith has done some process improvement in the fleet, in the logistics area, and it's actually repositioned positions to improve the flow through the garage. But this is necessary for the overspill.
Okay, that's very helpful. That's why I needed that clarification. Wasn't that clear to me? So those are all my questions. Anyone else have a question? Okay, good. I don't need to speak to it. I think that the clarification is very helpful. So I can move the item, EC 5.5, amendment to the contracts 47020428 for the provision of overflow or preventative maintenance and repair for our various classes of vehicles. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, members, we are now moving to... This is the,
2 items left,
Yep.
12 and 13.
yeah, so we are now, Mr. Williams. So shall we do number 12, please? That's the Toronto Economic Bulletin. You have a presentation to us? And then, members, we have one item left. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Councillor Carol asked for a bit of a deep dive on the leading indicators and dashboard that we give. So we thought we would do that. So we have the context that was set this morning, which shows sort of the big picture and the sort of pressures that we fall within. She talked about a couple of things, or many things, that we in the city have absolutely zero ability to influence, control, or shape. So we can do little bits in terms of relationships, but we can't do the fundamental things. If Mr. Trump and China want to have a trade war, we're not going to be able to stop that. So what I thought in terms of a deep dive is to go through, and the theme really is we've been on a growth economy. All of North America, or much of North America, especially in the U.S., has been on a growth economy for about 3 or 4 years. We predate that. The beginning of ours predated it. And so those of us that are old enough to have seen cycles fold and unfold will know that this doesn't continue forever, that there will be swings and ups and downs. Part of what I'm trying to say today is that we're about as in a good a place as you could be heading into that kind of world. And so there are negatives to being in a growth economy, and I'll raise those as we go through. But the fundamentals, when you take a look at historical precedent, seem pretty strong. So first of all, what are the economic think tanks saying about our future? And the lines all to the right of that vertical faint line are what the future they're saying will be. And it's saying basically around 2%. It's a little bit ahead of the Canadian average that was talked about this morning. So we're going to do a little bit better than the national average according to the consensus forecasts. As you can see from the history, everything goes up and down, and the economists think it's all going to be flat lines, so we know that's not going to be the case. One economist group there, Oxford, thinks that this year, or 20, is going to be a very strong year. Certainly, we have a lot of construction going on. That would indicate positive outlooks by a lot of people who are putting a lot of money right now into that perspective. The mayor says this, we say this all the time about how important Canada remains within the economic Toronto remains in the economic context of Canada. We're the bottom left red square or rectangle. We're a little bit bigger than a 905 economic output-wise. They're a little bit bigger than we are in population, but by and large, we're in sort of close to a balance. Then the rest of the province is about the same size as we are collectively with 905. And you can see the rest of the relationships. We are an important economic engine. We do impact the average statistics for Canada. But we also benefit from the rest of Canada. And so it's to our advantage to have the whole country going well. That will make Toronto go well. So far, so good on that. This is a new piece of data that's not in our indicator, but it's a fascinating index. This is where low is good. And as you'll see, we're the lowest here. We have the lowest economic risk according to Lloyds, who know a lot about risk, from the point of view of the structure of our economy, the trends, et cetera. They're saying we have the least likelihood of a major hiccup. So my comment at the beginning that we're in good place for what might happen in terms of the swings in the economy is validated by Lloyd's comments here. One of the things that's happening, and this is a chart of population ins and outs. So above the line are all the adds to the population base, and you can see that it's almost always international immigration for the city of Toronto. And the red is the deletions, and we're below the line. So for a long time, we were losing people to the rest of the province, or to the rest of the province, 905 namely. If you had this chart for 905, it's showing the same thing. 905 is losing to the rest of the province. So people in search of better house prices are moving further out. If you take a look at the far right column, immigration is really starting to add to Toronto. And so that line that's sort of taking off on the right-hand side is a net increase. So our net increase is now getting very significant and almost totally due to international immigration, but also some interprovincial migration, which is that delightful lime green, means coming here. So for a long time, you see on the left-hand side, we were leaking on that one a little bit. Now we're growing on that one. People follow jobs, jobs follow people. The people are coming here, jobs are coming here. And as you can see here, this is planning's place of work survey. So they go to a place of work. This is not the labor force, which is place of residence. And this growth has been basically sustained for the last 25 years with a little hiccup around the dot-com boom. Notice the minor hiccup around the 8-9 credit crisis. That was the strength of Toronto. It was short and unfortunate for those that got negatively impacted, but very short. And now the growth has been very, very, very strong. This partially explains, but Councillor Carol zoomed in on the bigger explanation. This partially explains the fact that our unemployment rate has dropped very significantly compared to what it was like back in the early 2000s. You have to go back to the 80s to get unemployment rates in these kind of numbers. And 10 years ago, we were talking about the gap between the dotted line and the 3 solid lines, that our unemployment rate was quite a bit out of sync with everybody else's, and one of our goals was to bring it tighter. So the jobs chart I showed before was part of the reason, and Councillor Carol highlighted the other reason. That is that our participation rates continue to edge downwards. So when people leave the labor force, that could be in the labor force, that helps the unemployment rate because it lowers the denominator. So that trend is probably a result of aging baby boomers that are in the city disproportionately to the other areas. People between the ages of 55 and 64, which is right in the middle of the baby boom now, have a much lower participation rate than those in the age brackets 35 to 44, 45 to 54. And the other thing would be a large number of immigrants who don't feel they're ready for the labor force yet, so are not yet looking for work, which is the definition of whether you're in the labor force or not. Housing growth, and we talk about the relative strengths within ourselves and 905. That dashed line shows the share between ourselves and 905, and it waves up and down depending upon some projects and strength. We're now more housing starts, housing growth than the 905, but just barely. There's still a lot going on there. We've always been a little bit more on industrial and commercial buildings. Still a lot going on in 905, as you can see, but we're still a higher ratio, and they seem to go up and down in tandem. So we continue to share pretty equally the economic growth in both 905 and the 416. The big difference is that for 416, it's almost all concentrated in the downtown core when it comes to office commercial. We're starting to see signs that that is spreading around the city a little bit. So now, what's most amazing is this, in my view, is the length of, this has been going on for quite a while now, is the vacancy rate, both for commercial and for industrial, which is, to have vacancy rates in the low 1s and 2% basically means that you're in a too tight a situation and prices are going to go up too quickly, which is why we're now seeing one of the negatives of our growth, which is the unaffordability for anybody that's price inelastic. So entrepreneurs, culture, et cetera, smaller retailers are all having trouble. It also shows that any attempt to convert industrial to residential right now, there is no need to do that. We are running out of industrial land. And we are at a rate that we hope that we start building vertical factories pretty soon, because we're not going to be able to do it in the old school way. Office vacancy rates as well. Ours are traditionally much lower than the 905. 905's had a history of building on spec. In the city, we don't build on spec because of the price. So we only build when there's already a tenant or a large number of tenants. But again, both 905 and 416 are dropping, although 905 still has a healthy supply. I'm going to go back one. There's a huge, I did.
You went forward as opposed to backwards.
So that big red addition to the supply on the right-hand side is GM in Oshawa coming online as a potential place to lease. So 15 million square feet.
Wow.
It's a lot. Aside from that, it's very tiny additions.
Okay.
And here are some of the towers that are under construction. The CIB Square one, which is on both sides of the tracks opposite Scotiabank Arena. 16 York, right at Bremner. LCBO Tower, which is a huge hole just south of the tracks. 160 Front Street West is a little bit further. Oh, that's a little bit further from being constructed. And the Well is that huge hole on the north side of Front Street over past Bathurst. So we have a lot of jobs continuing to come to downtown Toronto. So from my perspective, I see no immediate threat, other than the fact that history tells me things move in cycles. So at some stage, this will slow down, but our business fundamentals, our mixture of sectors that we're involved in, our continuing attraction to immigrants because of our tolerant lifestyle, our momentum in our cultural world, our four universities and 4 colleges continue to attract international students who choose to stay here. We continue to attract students from the rest of Canada and the province who choose to stay here because of the opportunity and the lifestyles and the breadth of lifestyle opportunities everybody has. So the fundamentals are strong. I think we're continuing to go well. The clouds on any horizon are what happens in the rest of the world.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Take any questions.
Mr. Williams, for your presentation. Members, are there questions for Mr. Williams? I see heads nodding. Just before I take questions for Mr. Williams, I would like to introduce the Commissioner of Prisons for the country of Grenada, Mr. John Mitchell, who's here with us. Mr. Mitchell, would you please stand and be acknowledged? And he's accompanied by Mrs. Cyrus, who's here with us.
Here while I'm up here, right? Next to me.
I'm just going to ask Councillor Grimes to take the chair while I just go to meet with Mr. Mitchell for a second. Councillor Grimes, Deputy Chair.
Councillor Carol, the question?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm going to start at the end of my questions because we were just on that slide. So we're seeing lots of building facilities and jobs coming into the downtown core. But with rates that low, it means we can have some optimism for outside the downtown core employment zones.
And I think that's showing good evidence already. The Celestica development still has to happen.
Yeah.
There's a number of approved and projects that my understanding are a go for them. The conversations I have with developers indicate they may not be on the scale of what's happening in downtown, but they're significant.
So the question is, I don't know how familiar you'd be with it. We're going to talk about it in some of our communities tonight, but Bill 108 made all of our hearts skip a beat. One of the reasons being it says that, you know, our ability to protect our employment zones, we now hear only provincially significant employment zones. Conversions might happen elsewhere. Have you had a chance to look at what is a provincially significant employment zone? Is it aligned with the trends that we want to continue to follow?
Almost all are provincially called pizzas by the planners, are outside the core, so that's positive, and certainly substantive tracts of land. Almost everything that's inside or near the core, on the periphery or on the edge of the core, are being loosened by the province. Now, the city still has, our zoning and our OP still stands. But pressure to convert will continue to be exerted in those areas that are more south of the 401 and inside the sort of
But we can push and say, your office building is marketable. That's why we're saying no to your conversion.
Just came from a meeting on that.
Okay. That, the issue of participation rate versus employment rate, if we made some sort of adjustment, if we looked at the fact that participation is dropping, is that why, well, we see a pretty good number there for unemployment rate, we still hear of young people suffering with precarious employment, fretting about unpensioned work that may not be there a year from now, which it doesn't always show, but we still have to have a robust employment strategy, even though we see that needle going down.
Very much so.
Right?
Very much so.
Yeah. The participation rate and boomers like us, boomers like us, early retiring is throwing it out a little bit.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that was the point I wanted to make with, well, the banker was here this morning.
Can I just, Councillor, if I can just
Yeah.
expand on that answer a little bit. Precarious work still shows up as an employed person. So in the statistics on unemployment,
Yeah.
it undermines the issues that we are facing with regard to precarious work. So, and the looming skill shortages. So lots of people are worried right now that we don't have enough labor skills and labor available for industrial, commercial, and infrastructure construction.
Right.
And, you know, we have a lot of that coming, and that'll be for a long time. And no matter what the economy is doing, we're going to be building those subways or building those LRTs or building regional rail. So we're going to need people to do that.
Yeah.
Or else the price is going to get ginormous.
Yeah.
And if you talk to people, you know, Mike Dandry, et cetera, we're already paying a price for that squeezing of that market. So I think lots needs to be done on helping on that side of things.
Exactly, because building things is an incredibly good living. We just have to convince the parents of the people who could be doing that job.
It's a big
It's
part
a
of the
great
story.
living. I only have one other question, Mr. Vice Chair, and that's around the, I haven't got the slide in the actual dashboard, but it is in your presentation, which is the retail page in the actual dashboard. There are some real spiky, scary stories in there. Do we need to have some sort of strategy in that that's where we go, looking for people who may have stumbled into that work at a time when that was the only work, and in fact, they could be those people that could move into the skilled trades? Do we have some sort of outreach center as retail changes radically with online, that they know there's a path that could send them off to an apprenticeship to skilled trades?
So there's two aspects to my answer. The first is the future of retail is a very important issue for us, and we have a study underway right now.
Oh.
Take a look at that.
That will come here soon?
That will come here by the end of the year.
Yay.
Mainly because we're trying to understand what the impact will be on Main Street.
Yes.
So we've seen, there's already almost 500,000 square feet of space in the Eaton Center, and if I include Simpsons as my Simpsons.
Yes, Simpsons.
Dave myself, the Hudson's Bay Company now, have been taken out and converted to office commercial. So, and we see that in shopping centers and starting to see it in bits and pieces in the Main Street. So we need to understand that, because so
Yeah.
much of the vibrancy of our neighborhoods are directly attributable to the Main Street retail and service businesses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Councillor Lai, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you very much for a very, very good comprehensive deep dive, and it's nice to know that our economy is very safe, and also, you know, the fundamentals are going still very strong. That's what
I'm going
it
to touch
says.
all, I'm going to cross everything.
It says right here,
Tap
Toronto
my-
rated
as
a
much
very
wood as I
safe
can.
economy. Anyways, I take that for it. And I'm going to hold it against you. Anyways, if it doesn't go safe, it becomes unsafe. Anyways, I guess my question is that for that provincially significant employment zone, is it going to have a huge impact on the employment zone for Toronto?
It could speed up conversion, because it opens a window a little bit ahead, only about 2 years ahead of the conversion pressure that will come in the next round of municipal comprehensive reviews. So it is freed up, if you will, that's the language a developer would use, that for potential changes, but the council's still got to agree to it. So it's not something that's completely out of the city's control, just creates more pressure and more work.
So are we in conversation with the province in regards to this, or are there any dialogues between?
We certainly made our feelings known. Planning has put in a very extensive set of commentary on Bill 108, but still Bill 108.
Okay. I think a following up question would be that, so when is our next MCR? When is an anticipation for the next MCR coming?
Probably a couple of years. We need to let the appeal process go through and finish from the current process. But
so still a couple of more years to go?
Yes, that's my understanding from planning. Rebecca, do you know any different? That's true, okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lai. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have two questions, and one, Council Ford, I have no idea what I'm talking about. And while we're talking Simpsons, remember the 2 hot dogs on Honeydew for $1? Never mind, okay.
Ouch.
Toronto rated a very safe economy. Why are we so low on that? I know Montreal, Chicago's just a little bit, this chart here, that intrigues me. Why are we a very safe economy?
Pardon?
What page are you on?
Oh, yeah,
Top rated, a very safe economy, where low is good?
So the reason for that is multifold, but a couple of key things. We're the most diversified economy, urban economy in North America. Only maybe Boston and maybe Chicago have as many different industries that they rely on. So we are not a one-trick pony. And that's why we went through the dot-com bust easily. That's why we got through the financial curtailment easily, is because we had many other sectors working as well. We are not, despite all of the weather issues and current issues on Centre Island, we're not in the worst areas for global warming. We're in one of the better areas for global warming. Again, touch wood on that one, because we have lots of immigration coming in. We have lots of construction going on. So for all of those reasons, we have a solid financial system. We have a solid financial backing in the city. We're less exposed to most of the normal wins that you can get in an economy.
Maybe it's just that great general manager we have at economic development here.
I'm sorry?
Maybe that's just that great general manager we have at economic development.
Yes, we are.
Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anyone further? Okay, seeing none, we'll just get to speakers. Councillor Carol to speak.
Yes, I asked the earlier questions because I think we've reached the point where the downtown core looks kind of like the Richard Florida prediction. If the jobs actually follow the people and the people want to live downtown, we don't have to worry about that. But we've gone to such considerable effort and expense to work on the employment zones outside the downtown core to make sure that while we're building transit out there, people can't just be using the transit to leave there and go downtown. There has to be some element that's going there to work or staying there to work. And so economic development taking part in our lobbying efforts on Bill 108 is hugely important. Mr. Chair, the only other thing I wanted to stress is the thing that I was asking Ms. Desjardins about this morning, which is the piece about not being lulled into a false sense of security about our unemployment rate. We have huge work to do, and it doesn't really go away. When we have what look like great numbers, because we have a lot going on and we have really strong immigration, we go good on us if we're just looking at the graph. But what we know is that so much of that segment of the population and the millennial segment of the population are doing all of that work on contract, whether it's a 3-month contract to try and prove yourself and get a CV going, or it's the marching through the tech sector doing 1- and 2-year contracts, one after the other after the other. It means that a large segment of what looks like a great low unemployment rate are unpensioned and precarious. And so we got a good number that we need to make a more sustainable number, whereas in fact, if things do go in cycle, as we've been advised by the general manager, and we all got into a bad cycle, they have no backup, whereas some of us do. And so basically, we have to watch out for our own kids and our newcomers. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carol. Councillor Lai to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I wanted to say is we have the coalition conference that we hosted in Toronto in the last week, and I think I wanted to see. I don't know how we're going to do it, but my two sons actually, they're millennials, and they all had companies in the New York in the States, and they actually moved back to Toronto. And I really actually the guys. The company that sponsored the e-scooters, they're my son's company. They are startup companies, and he was telling me that there is a lot of appetite to actually, the millennials, people from Silicon Valley, they are very, very eager to move back to Toronto. And I'm just wondering whether, we can actually work on something to attract those people to come back to Toronto, and I think it would be a good thing for them. For Toronto as well, and because we're losing a lot of Canadians actually, and now that we actually ranked #1 city for the last 2 years for the best quality of life, and I think it would be nice that we can attract them back to Toronto. It would be a nice thing. And the other piece I wanted to mention is about economic development. Is that I see that our Scarborough Civic Center has been so underused. And I think we should actually do something to make sure that we will revive that area there, and to be a good employment zone, and we'll try to attract people so that we can bring economic development not only just to the downtown Toronto. I think we are too congested now downtown. We need to spread out and move a little bit to the other side, maybe to the Eglinton and Leslie area when there's the LRT. And I think we should be proactive in kind of promoting all these economic growth in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lai. Further speakers? Okay, so I'll be the last speaker. So first of all, I want to thank Mr. Williams for the presentation. Thank our staff in EDC for the great work that's done on a daily basis. We have a plan. We're focused. We're working hard. Councillor, let me just take the last point that you made with respect to the Civic Center area. There is a tremendous amount of work actually being done now with respect to the Civic Center area. We have the Scarborough Town Center has just come forward with like a 50-year plan. And in that 50-year plan, most of the concentration is going to be within that first 5 to 10 years. We've gone through a tremendous review. We've had a number of meetings. In fact, we're looking at transforming that entire area in terms of even moving where traffic lights are and some of the roads and park areas. We will have about 21 new parks in that area, some of them larger, some of them much smaller and so on. But what's really important is that we've had the landowners who've come forward and with plans for in excess of $5 billion worth of investment to be made in that area that you speak of. So you're absolutely right. There's more condo development and more development in general that's taking place. We have a new block of condos that's going to be developed right on the corner of Brimley and Ellesmere on the west side. We are actually in the process of finalizing the approvals. I just met with them last week. We are generating $750,000 of Section 37 funding, large amounts that was going to be invested in the community. So we are doing those things. I'm really happy with the report. The other issue, and I know that we've talked a little bit about the downtown core, what's going to assist us and revitalize our community is the expanded nature of the transit system. That's whether or not it's a 3-stop or 1-stop going to Scarborough, we will see that because now, since the 90s, we've not had any type of real investment in an office structure, for example, in that area. Concilium was the last facilities built, and it was like, I'm dating myself, but it's probably around 1992. Additionally, Councillor, as a result of the crosstown, which is a 19 kilometers, 25-stop crosstown coming crosstown, the whole Golden Mile area from Victoria Park and Councillor Carol just to the north, it's 240 acres of land in that area. So amassing that type of, mixed use in that area. The jobs are coming. The recreation facilities are coming. The parks are coming. The houses are coming. The retail are coming. So it will be that we will be focusing on the suburban area. And I would say, obviously, for the West End, similar activities is going to take place. But as it relates to the presentation about our thriving economy, the economy doesn't thrive unless you prepare and plan for it. Talked a little bit about the benefits of immigration to us. We are open to immigration, and the right kind of immigration in terms of people coming in to be able to make contribution to our society. We're not building walls or closing off our access to our borders and so on and so forth like others are doing, because we know the value and the strength of immigration. 52% of our population of 2.8 million people were not born in Canada. They come from varying parts of the world and so on. And I've got to just deal with your sons for a moment, Councillor. Your son, these one son's coming in to sit down with Mike and I. We just have to finalize the time because they are, if you will, that next generation who were from immigrant parents, what they have done in terms of expanding and creating greater reach to create more prosperity and more opportunities and so on in our community, the benefits. We also have what is it's a homecoming program that is designed to actually reach out around the world to Canadians to actually remind them that there are great things happening here. I know that I've been to a number of the Sunday morning processes in the summertime. We have them. The mayor has been. I think, Mike, you've been to some of those as well, right? And so we actually have those programs designed. We are reaching out globally to Canadians to say, look, at home, there's so much. The quality of life is so amazing, and people want to come back. Now, we have folks from Silicon Valley who want to come back to be here to bring some of their knowledge and bring their wealth and so on. So it's going to be, as I pinch myself in most days, when I started in this job and as chair 10 years ago, we've come a long way. And it's built on a healthy ecosystem, whereas Mr. Williams had pointed out, there's only 3 North American cities, Boston, Chicago, and Toronto, where we're not relying on one specific sector to be our prosperity engine. We have a variety of others and so on. So I think it's extremely important. So I want to thank Mr. Williams for this report. I want to move receipt of this report, and that's the action we're going to take. So all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Members, we have one item left, and we have 2 speakers with respect to the last slide.
Just to clarify, I think you wanted to move adopt so that it goes to City Council.
Okay, so, all right, so we're moving adopt as opposed to receive. So this item will go to City Council for further discussion and so on. So, okay, so all those, we're moving adoption of the report. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And we're moving right along to the next item. Improving the imagination, manufacturing, innovation, and technology for local employment requirement. We have 2 speakers. The first speaker I have is Mohammed Hassim, Toronto and York Regional Labour Council. And it looks like there's someone else with you, and is that Kumsa Baker? Mark Baker, yes. So you have 10 minutes to speak. I'll take your clock back to 0. You're speaking together, or? Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, and welcome.
Oh, thank you. My name is Mohammed Hashim. I'm a senior organizer at the Toronto York Regional Labour Council.
And my name is Kumsa Becker. I'm with the Toronto Community Benefits Network.
So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. This is my 3rd or 4th time deputing on the TEAG/IMIT program, and it's been developing over the number of years. We've contributed our thoughts on the program through the Economic Development Plan, through the TEAGS review. We've met with staff a number of different times, and over the years, we've seen a lot of change with the program, particularly last council, where a number of restrictions were put towards downtown development, which we welcomed and advocated for previously. But we're not sure exactly where that is at this point, with the OMB being in flux and that, and we hope to see that resolved as soon as possible. I wanted to actually just develop a bit more off Mr. Williams' comments around the office vacancy downtown being so low now, and the economy doing so well, and how industrial land is in such high demand, and how the labor shortage and in a time of an economic boom, especially in terms of infrastructure, that this is a really important, opportune moment for the city to review how they are using their grant programs to actually enable and further develop our economic needs in Toronto. So the first thing I want to say is, the Toronto and York Region Labour Council and the TCBN, the Toronto Community Benefits Network, we welcome the city staff report and recommending City Council expand the scope of the IMIT employment program to include good jobs, workforce development initiatives that promotes well-paying careers in the trades, and a strategy to reduce precarious employment amongst building and tenant staff. To date, reported outcomes of the IMIT employment program has had about a minimal impact on connecting candidates from city-sponsored programs to the opportunities created through IMIT. Of the 46 projects receiving IMIT incentives, approximately 70,000 total, of which 17,000 net new jobs have been added. However, placements from city-sponsored programs have only totaled 99, which is 0.5% of the net new jobs that have been created. This report provides the opportunity to adopt a new administrative approach to the local economic requirement for IMIT to provide quality employment and training opportunities for city residents. We support the scalable points-based approach, which requires IMIT recipients and its tenants to implement and report on activities and outcomes of local employment initiatives. However, we do have some very small recommendations that we are going to provide to strengthen this new approach to the IMIT employment program. And before I hand it over to Kumsa, I just wanted to say, as we look at this program, and we have for the number of years, for us, the key incentive of always providing grants to corporations is always to ensure that it creates some economic upliftment for people. And that's through creating jobs, that's through creating careers. And this is a really important opportunity at this time where we're reviewing this employment review, but also the program as a whole, to ensure that we make sure that the investments that the city are making for economic development match those. So I'll give it over to Kumsa to talk about a few of the recommendations that we have.
Yeah, so the new approach to the point-based system, which is scalable, which is something that we really support. So if you're a larger project, there's certain a larger amount of points that you would need to achieve. However, what we've seen is that there's been a lot of focus on getting IMIT recipients to participate in city programs. So we know in 2018, there's about 52 IMIT recipients that participated in 23 employment events and listed 65 job postings. However, from all that work, only 19 residents participating in city-sponsored programs actually got hired. So there's a lot of work that's going into getting them to do that sort of level of outreach, but actually getting people to actually get a job, which is something that we've seen as being a challenge of the program. City staff also indicate in the report that this new approach has been developed to encourage training and hiring outcomes that are quantifiable and achievable. This highlights the importance of focusing the new approach to award points based on completion or achievements of outcomes like hiring, awarding a contract or implementing a new policy. Where we see room for improvement is looking at certain activities that should not be awarded points. So we know there's been points that are allocated towards listing job openings with tests, participating in a city-endorsed recruitment event, participating in a city-endorsed information event, or interviewing a candidate from a city-endorsed programs. Those are activities that historically we've seen a pretty good level of participation from IMIT recipients. However, where we're seeing the sort of challenge is actually getting people to actually a job, whether it be through the IMIT recipient themselves or the property user. So where we see rooms for improvement is listing these activities as a requirement of the program, rather than awarding points towards these activities. We know any business in the City of Toronto would have to spend resources doing hiring, doing outreach, completing interviews. So we feel like that's a recommendation that should be adopted. We also have some comments about the participation in the new IMIT program. So in consultation with city staff, IMIT recipients have highlighted the lack of clarity on what options exist and what activity levels are required to achieve compliance as a key challenge to IMIT recipients achieving employment outcomes. So with the new points-based approach that provides a list of options and targets to achieve compliance, we recommend that staff should strongly encourage all IMIT recipients to participate in the new employment program. Currently, the language it only says encourage, so we would like to sort of strengthen that language to say strongly encourage. In terms of reporting, we support the city staff recommendation to develop an online reporting tool for both IMIT recipients and property users. However, we would like this reporting to be transparent and publicly accessible. So similar to the Woodbine Casino Community Benefits Agreement, where there's online reporting, any person from Toronto can go online and see exactly how successful that program has been. So we know there's going to be an online tool developed to track exactly what are the outcomes from it. So if we can go a little bit step further and making that publicly accessible, that would be much appreciated. A few more comments around the employment review. City staff have recommended a one-year pilot where staff, I quote, staff should undertake a review in consultation with all stakeholders after a full year of implementation, late 2020, with a detailed analysis of opportunities for further improvement in the next IMIT review. We support the one-year pilot review of the IMIT program. However, we recommend after the one-year pilot period, staff analyze the results and report to council in fourth quarter 2020 with an interim report, just to make sure that we have an ability to assess after a year how well the participation is in this program, and if there's like another step to ensure that we can amend the bylaws to make employment a requirement of the program, where right now it's sort of voluntary and there's no actual real requirement of participating in the employment program. That would also be much appreciated. In terms of preparing for the jobs of tomorrow, I know this is something that was highlighted within the report, which is a key challenge from both property owners as well as users, was matching job seekers to opportunities available, which is often not a good fit due to high skill nature of the roles available. So we know a lot of these office developments, there's a huge need for high skilled labor. We do know, like even hearing from some of the presentations earlier, that Toronto does have a shortage of high skilled labor. So if there's a way where we can propose that city staff continue to work with both property owners as well as property users to look at how are there ways where they can start working with other programs that support Toronto residents into high-skilled labor or high-skilled work. So whether it be training programs, whether it be other career development programs that the city can work with to ensure that we're not only opening opportunities in construction or low-skilled labor, but also high-skilled labor within that workforce. And the last comment would be around living wage policy. So we know one of the menu options of the point-based system includes implementation of a living wage policy for all employees, including externally contracted staff, providing ongoing services. City staff defines living wage using the Ontario Living Wage Network definition, where living wage is the hourly wage.
20 seconds more, sir. You're at 10 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. So what we propose is that if the city can use or propose to IMIT recipients that want to implement this new living wage policy, that they use the definition or the wage that's been set by the Ontario Living Wage Network.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Are there any questions for our speakers? Councillor Carol, question?
So some of the things that you're outlining actually do appear in the point system, but you want to see the strengthened language. Because we do see within the outline of the point system that's in the report looks at the construction piece, looks at the living wage piece. It's just not, the standards aren't there. So if we received assurance that is going to be nailed down in the implementation and then proceed with the pilot, would that be a comfort level for you, or do you think it needs to be actually in the motion?
Well, the things around like living wage, that definitely makes sense where that can be implemented. However, the challenge I see is that IMIT recipients are being awarded points for normal business practices like hiring.
Yeah, those ones,
Like hosting a job fair, like attending city job fair. I think that's something that all developers should be at least a requirement of receiving this tax incentive to at least be out there and being visible and supporting the local community. And instead focus the points around actual achievement of outcomes, right? So if you hire someone, you would get points. If you were to award a contract, you would get points.
Right.
If you were to implement a policy, you would get points, right? But some of the activities that actually don't have real meaningful outcomes, I think that's more of the challenge that we see is like we're awarding points towards things that are not
Okay,
Outcome-based.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank
you very
you.
much, Councilor Carol. Any further questions? Casey? So I just have a quick question for you both. So on the procurement piece, because I'm a little bit concerned about that. So we have a lot of businesses who are struggling, small, development companies involved in the construction trade. They're non-unionized for the most part because they're small and many of them minority-owned and so on. It's my view that we don't really capture that here, although we talk a little bit about procurement. Now, I don't have a motion at this time. I've spoken with the general manager because I'm a little concerned that we're not sort of focusing attention on creating opportunity so we can actually give those small companies an option to grow within the context of bringing skilled laborers or going into communities and reaching out, being able to gather them. I realize that your perspective and the benefit network, great. On the labor side, the training that you do, the preparation that you do to get people into the mix and so on, that's fantastic. But I think that piece is missing. Would you agree this is an area that we really need to actually shine some light on in order to ensure that we can actually help those businesses that are small now to grow? If you look at places like Atlanta and some extent Miami, even Austin, Texas, they've got programs to actually help minority-owned business. And I hate using the term minority anything, quite frankly, because I think we're just people. We're focusing on trying to get ahead. I'm just wondering, do you have any thoughts on that? I realize it's not from a labor side, but it is in a roundabout way, right?
Yeah, I mean, providing any type of support for business growth and business development, typically is a good thing. And we know many communities when they first immigrate here, they gravitate to people who they know.
Right.
And many of those businesses start off that way. And I think that as long as we model to them a set of standards that we aspire to,
right.
That includes unions, that includes living wages, that includes standards and safety. Because when we have businesses that are starting up, sometimes it's difficult for them to get a leg in there. But as they develop their health and safety policies, and so as long as we're doing those things that uplift workers' rights, workers' abilities to remain safe, and that I would support that, of course.
It's making this part of the criteria moving forward. Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? Thank you both very much, and we appreciate you having you here. Questions of staff? Is there any question? Councilor Carol, to begin.
Thanks. I have sort of two tracks, and one that I already discussed with Mr. Williams, which is dealing with the long gap between when we would finish up the evaluation period and the amount of time it would take to create the evaluation report. But I can speak to that in my comments. The other thing are the issues raised today, the idea that perhaps some things that shouldn't really be points, they should be a matter of course. I note that here, while they're on the list of things we would award points for, it's 1 point. If somebody gets hired, you get 10 points. Just taking part in a job fair is 1 point. I don't want to start picking through it and making changes, though, here on the floor. I'm wondering if it's possible for us to look between now and council at it. Would this report, if we adopt it today, be going to council?
Yes.
Yeah. So perhaps we could have a look offline of things that are so simple and so low weighted, perhaps they should just be mandatory going forward. And then the things where we've awarded 10 points or more are the point system. Is it possible to look at that between now and council to maybe hone it a little bit?
Yes, if I could just amplify. So the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
It is very tricky, the weight of compulsory, you know, you have to hire somebody to get points. You have to
right
across the whole breadth of all the kind of applicants we have. So a simple example would be a manufacturer who uses just S&C equipment is going to be out hiring people. They have to be trained in S&C equipment. If there's nobody in the pool at tests that's got that kind of training, then to disqualify somebody from an IMET grant because there is no pool available, I think is too draconian. So that's why they should be going through a process that opens it up and gives a better opportunity for it. This is a pilot and we need to tweak it. So we're not, I don't think any of us are going to nail it right the first time.
Right.
Everywhere. We can take a look at the relative points. I thought we certainly had a philosophy that higher you get, but
yeah, you can see
the
that.
point is that it's too easy to do lip service and then get your points and not actually hire somebody. That's a problem, and I would agree that we need to fix that.
Right.
To make it compulsory, I think, is too hard the other way. So we'll look for a little bit more.
And if you know, we're doing this for the pilot, there's a tremendous number of organizations that are already in it and going through their years of the grant paying for a deferral. We can't really impose anything on those folks. They're grandfathered where they are.
Well, we're going to hope that we can.
Thinking that because was there contractual language around that?
So there is, and our best advice to council is that we attempt to convince them that the clarity that following this process provides is better for them than the woolly stuff that is there now.
Yes.
I agree with the transparency comment, and that would be another nudge to participate in this.
Well, and that's one thing that we could, if we were to adopt, I'll make this my last question, Mr. Chair, because the answer might be long. If we were, the transparency is wanted, there's a suggestion here once we start, if it's points-based going forward, what about annual reporting? Couldn't we float all boats? Because if we took those that are already in an IMIT program and those we're attracting into it, if we just adopted an open data approach, that annually the points and where everyone's at could go up on an open data?
We just need to check to make sure that that fits the legal situation, but
yeah,
I think that in principle, yes.
So we could, a basic report card could go up and we'd know where everybody was at, and then you wouldn't have to keep writing the report. You also wouldn't end up in a situation where once a year we start amending the heck out of the thing. Yeah.
I don't think we do that anyway. I mean, I think.
We can always try.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Abby, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just that it might be
Sorry, I
something.
was asking Abby behind you.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
I don't really have anything to add. I think that there wouldn't be any impediment to an open reporting platform. That wouldn't require an amendment to the program or anything like that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Councilor Carol. Any further questioning? Okay, seeing none. Councilor Carol, do you wish to speak? You can take it home. The motion, you have a motion. Yep. Yeah, on the screen. Yep.
Comes out of the answer I just took. And that would simply be that I would ask, so that staff would have the ability to do the wording, the only other motion beyond this one would be that staff report to council, this coming council session, on the ability to track the program by taking an open data approach to the points-based system. And then if there are any concerns with it, they'd be able to tell us at council and we can make the final decision on that. This motion, I'm hoping we can pass today. All this does is take care of the concern that I have, and I've lived it in other pilots, where we want a good evaluation. If you have a third-party evaluation, you conduct your pilot, and then you want them to do a decent report, and so you give them the time to do that. And then what happens is, because this pilot, if it starts in October 2019, it will come to the end of its evaluation period while we're discussing the budget of 2021. And because we want them to write a half-decent report, we're not asking for that report back until mid-2022, which means you could, I don't know that you would do this and be mean to us, but you could potentially see the pilot happen in 20, then looking for budget reductions, suddenly the point system is there in 20, disappears in 2021, then council views the evaluation and says, let's have a point system, and point system is back. That's really not fair to the business owners then, because they really just don't know where they stand. So what I'm suggesting is the evaluation period may well be over October 2020, and we will get the proper report. But so that council and budget can give direction, the points-based system that is contemplated in the pilot just continues into the 2021 budget process, and then we'll get the evaluation and make a decision before a next budget process would happen. That's why I'm moving it, so that there's some consistency and seeming fairness to the businesses that have taken part both pre and post point system being implemented.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
So you have both? Just take a look at the second of the two, Councillor, before we move ahead. And while you're doing that, I would just want to say to the two speakers, what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow up with you both, and going to council, we could perhaps look at the language and working with staff in terms of tightening it up a bit and to make it a little bit more effective, quite frankly. I think that was the objective, and so we'll see how we can move that along. Okay, so Councillor, maybe just have staff put up the second of the two.
Thanks to the Secretary for making it very simple. By reporting to council, then if there is some problem with this, they can suggest some other accountable way to deal with it.
All right.
Yeah.
So we will deal with this as a second item, and so members, have you read it? As Councillor Carol has stated, it's open data approach to reporting on the point system. Are we good? So let's go back to the first one. We'll vote on the first one as opposed to take them as a package. So all those in favor on the first motion, which will be coming on the screen in a moment. Here we are. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. On the second. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. I think, members, we're done. So, motion to adjourn the meeting. Councillor Lai, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much to our amazing staff. Thank you, and to everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Madam DCM. Thank you. We're good.